Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Two-Man Game. I'm Connor Cohn, whatever you want to call me. Over here is Ryan. A lot has changed since our last episode. We were supposed to be doing ranking shooting guards next, but the Dame trade finally happened. Then we had a Jrue Holiday trade. There's a lot to talk about. So this episode's basically all going to be occupied by us talking about the trades. I'm not sure how long it's going to go. We've got Media Day that starts today as this episode is first going up on Monday, October 2nd. So we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about with that too. But for right now, we've got to go through the trades. Hopefully we can get to our other positional rankings before the season starts, but also preseason is around the corner. It feels like everything just changed out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden the NBA season is here. But first, before we get into that, Ryan, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty bad habit we got going on here because we got rewarded pretty well for some procrastination because we were going to record a Dame reaction, pretty close to after it happened. And then I had some stuff come up and we delayed it till Saturday, and I didn't get home last night till like 2 a.m. I was at Busch Gardens. If anyone knows what that is, you're a real one. Just roller coaster park that was Halloween themed for the fall. I was there with some buddies. And then this morning, we planned on recording anyways, and Connor was sleeping, and all of a sudden I got a notification that said Jrue is a Celtic. And it was as I was trying to cook up some football parlays. So I guess Woj just wanted to, interrupt the football world for a little bit right before the games were about to start. I was mid watching the Toy Story game.
Yeah, I woke up to watch the London game, and then it was, watching Desmond Ritter play football made me fall asleep. So I fell asleep while watching the game, and then woke up, and the trade had just happened a few minutes beforehand. So it was good timing. It worked out. I got a video out about that reacting initially. I haven't heard any of your thoughts really about the deals. We haven't talked too much about them, so I'm interested to hear. But yeah, we can go back first and talk about the Damian Lillard trade. Also, I'm doing well. I guess I'll put that out there too. But we've got the Dame trade first.
We can't talk about feelings, bro. Dame just got traded. So
no time for that. Damian Lillard is sent to the Milwaukee Bucks as part of a 3-team deal with Jrue Holiday, DeAndre and Tumini Kamara, 2029 unprotected Milwaukee first-round pick, and unprotected Milwaukee, or not unprotected, but swap rights in 2028 and 2030. Phoenix, meanwhile, gets Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nas Little, and Keon Johnson. There's also like this little bar I'm realizing in the middle of my face. I don't know if this is showing up on the recording or if this is just
I don't have a bar, bro.
You don't have that? Okay, cool. I think it's just because I can change the format, just making sure. But yeah, the Dame trade has happened, and it's not to the Miami Heat after it was rumored forever. It's not to like the Raptors. It's not to the Bulls, the Sixers, any of these other teams. It's to the Milwaukee Bucks. I've talked at length on my channel about how I feel about this for the Bucks. That's, I guess, the natural spot to start. I personally, when this trade happened, thought it made them the best team in the Eastern Conference. Giannis and Dame is basically a perfect pairing of superstar players. You get one guy who is extremely perimeter-centric, one of the best three-point shooting perimeter players of all time in Dame, who's just coming off probably the best individual season he's ever had. You put him with Giannis, who's one of the most dominant interior forces of all time. Like, they can run in transition together. The pick and roll is going to be unstoppable. They've still got Chris Brook out there on the perimeter as well. This team is ridiculous. Like, again, when it first happened, my first thought is, how do you stop this Bucks team? Of course, things have changed a little bit with the Jrue Holiday trade happening. But yeah, that's my kind of initial thoughts on the Bucks. What was your initial reaction, Ryan, when it happened?
My initial reaction, who is Tumani Kamara?
Second round pick, I think 56 overall.
All right, because my initial reaction was who? But nah, man. I mean, the Bucks were going to be really good with Jrue. They were first last year. Unfortunately, what happened in the playoffs, but they won a championship with that core that they have right now. But it's almost like you're playing 2K, right? And you're doing a rebuild, and you're just like, who can I put with Giannis to make like the best duo possible? And I think other than maybe Steph, I think Dame is literally probably the best player to put with Giannis in the whole league.
Yeah, because he's a playmaker, a perimeter shooter. Like, it really is a dream pairing. And we've seen Giannis and Steph like talk before and play in the All-Star game together and stuff. And people have said before, like, oh, that would be so fun to watch those two guys play together. Like, this is kind of the next best thing in that vein of you get Giannis, this high-level perimeter player that can play really well off of him. And again, I don't know how you stop a pick and roll of those two guys when you either have to go out fully commit to stopping Dame, who could pull up at a moment's notice or finish at the rim. He can pull up for three the second he curls around the screen. You've got Giannis diving to the rim. Like, it's an incredible pairing in Milwaukee. And really, they came out of nowhere to make this deal. We had heard, I think there was like one rumor I read or some report that the Bucks were interested, but it didn't seem like serious interest. It's one of those things where you're like, that would be crazy, but there's no way they get it done. Like, they don't have the package. And I mean, it worked. They got Dame like out of nowhere.
It's pretty dang cool for a new coach coming in, and now you have Damian Lillard and Giannis at your disposal, and it's just like, oh yeah, and your third best player is a multiple-time All-Star, and your fourth best player is one of the best shooting centers that was just in Defensive Player of the Year candidate. So it's a pretty good situation to come into. Too. So it'll be interesting. It's just interesting because it's like you want to think about how Bud was running the offense for so long and like, all right, how can Dame fit in that? But the whole team's going to change now. So I just think it's really interesting. Like it'll be very telling early, like what kind of, offense they're going to run and defensively too, because Jrue, I mean, obviously Dame clears on offense, not that he's a slouch or anything, but Dame's just, head and shoulders better on offense. But it'll be interesting to see how the team fares defensively, especially on the perimeter, just because I remember like, not so much last year, but in years past, the Bucks' biggest like kryptonite was defense on the perimeter. Like I swear, teams would just shoot lights out on them, and then they kind of.
That was a big reason why they picked up Jrue after 2020 losing to the Heat. They got torched from the perimeter
because they would just play drop coverage nonstop, and teams would just destroy them. So that'll be one thing that I'm going to look to very early is how they match up. Well, obviously on guard defense, because nothing against Middleton or. I guess even Pat Connaughton, because he'll probably play a lot more minutes when they need defensive help. But like, it'll be very interesting to see how they can guard all these other really good guards in the East. And then it'll also be interesting to see, just if like, I don't think there'll be an issue, but just like Giannis has never really had a share offensive ability because like Middleton's like a really good offensive player, but he would never be a first.
It's not Dame who puts up 30 points per game.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see too how he shares the ball in that kind of aspect. But I think Giannis, he just wants to win, so I think it'll be perfectly fine. I think defensively is what's going to be what to watch for more so than offensively for me, because I think
for sure. Like this team might be the best offense in the league next season. They're going to be up there in that conversation. 2 of the 5 guys who put up 31 plus points per game last year. It's the first time I think I saw some stat that it's the first time that 2 players that averaged 30 the season prior were put together on the same team the following offseason. It's a legitimately like historical trade. Like this means a lot. And it's not just a home run for the Bucks. I'm guessing you also think it's a home run for the Bucks.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you really didn't give up that much. All things considered, like you always give up Jrue for Dame. And then so like that's like that's just negates. Like it doesn't even matter. I don't even consider that part of the package. So you gave up what? A second round pick and
you gave up a first round pick and 2 pick swaps, as well as Grayson Allen, which
and like was Tumani the Bucks pick or is he?
He was on the Suns.
He's on the Suns. Okay.
Yeah.
But
so like that's I mean that's nothing. Like Dame, I think it's a clear upgrade over Jrue.
Grayson Allen kind of sucks from a depth perspective, but then you just go out and sign campaign today.
Yeah, so, and players are going to want to come in Milwaukee too to play. Like that's also another thing. You get to the buyout market midway through the season, the Bucks are probably cruising. Players are going to want to come there. Oh, yeah. This is also a franchise that has been consistently aggressive on the trade deadline market.
Oh, the buyout market too.
We saw them add PJ Tucker like a few years ago in their championship year. They added Jay Crowder this past year at the trade. Like they always make some type of acquisition. So I expect them to be aggressive. I mean, they just went out and traded for Dame. I don't think they're going to stop if they're having big perimeter issues or the depth is a problem, which like you said, they picked up Cameron Payne today, who I already think helps that a good bit because they had no backup one whatsoever. It just felt like destiny that Cam Payne would end up there.
When they had George Hill was there early on, he was okay, but they really haven't had a solid backup one, I feel like, in a while. They've been running like they ran Javon Carter there forever.
It's been like, Javon's been there, which they're also going to miss his perimeter defense. You know, I think they'll be okay overall. But yeah, like Javon Carter, a very old George Hill this past season played for them too. Like, yeah, they've never had great backup point guards. I think Cam Payne is solid. He wasn't great this past year, but I don't think he's going to have to play too much when Dame's playing like 30
he's a solid
rotational
game guard, though.
Yeah. And another thing about depth, I feel like people overrate depth just a little bit. It's certainly important, especially when you're dealing with injuries, which the Bucks have over the past few years. That is concerning. Same thing with the Suns, who we'll talk about a little bit later in this deal too. But if you can have a solid 8, 9 guys, you're good, especially when your top end talent is as good as the Bucks is now, where they have 2 superstars, an all-star caliber player, fringe, depending on how he comes back from injury, and Chris. Brooke Lopez was just top 2 in DPOY voting. Like those are your top 4 guys. You're going to be okay if your depth's not the best. They added Cam Payne. They've got Pat Connaughton, who wasn't great last year, but he's fine. Jay Crowder didn't play a lot last year, but looked good in the minutes that he did. Like, I think they're going to be okay. Malik Beasley is very up and down, but he's probably going to get a lot of wide open looks.
He's gonna get that. He's a Grayson Allen replacement, big time.
Yeah, I pulled up the. I'm gonna have to switch to this layout real quick just to switch over the picture. But I pulled up a Bucks depth chart actually, so that we could talk about that because it certainly is interesting to think about. Okay, let's go over here. Yeah, so this is the Bucks depth chart now. It's it also doesn't have Cameron Payne on here. Yeah, Campaign instead of Jackson Jr. there. So it is Jr.? Andre Jackson Jr., rookie coming into this season.
So Campaign.
Yeah, so Damian Lillard, Cameron Payne, Pat Connaughton, Malik Beasley, Chris Middleton. I also like Marjon Beauchamp. I think he could have a really good sophomore year. Giannis, Jay Crowder, Brook Lopez, and then they have Bobby Portis, who's one of the best 6 men in the league. Like this team is going to be fine.
That's a really good 10 when you throw Payne in there. It's a good 10.
It's perfectly fine. It's not the best in the league, but I think it's going to hold up really well. And again, when you have those top 4 guys plus Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, Jay Crowder, Beauchamp, like those guys can fill in. They're going to be good. I think this Bucks team's perfectly fine. To me, they got a lot better with this deal. Losing Jrue sucks. And like you said, the perimeter defense is certainly something to keep an eye on. But I think there's a lot of people just overthinking this. Like people saying, oh, you know, they gave up Jrue. They got worse in this deal. Like you said,
anyone that thinks they got worse is absolutely insane.
Like you said, losing. I mean, they just lost in the first round. And obviously Giannis was hurt. But even so, like the games where Giannis was back, they still lost. They had to make some type of change. And this also isn't just a move to, you know, get Dame into town. It's a move to keep Giannis because all summer he was saying every interview that he did, it was, I want to be a Buck for life, but I got to prioritize winning. He said that over and over again, pretty much hinting at the front office that, hey, I'm going to leave soon unless you fix something. And so they go out and add Damian Lillard. Like, I don't think you could have had a better trade for the franchise right now in terms of making your team better, but also just keeping your superstar, one of the best players in franchise history, happy and probably keeping him here as a Buck for the long term. Maybe even this was the move that they had to make to keep him as a Buck for life. Like, we don't know. It could be that big of a deal.
No, absolutely. And I think another funny kind of aspect of this is the whole Dame thing, how everyone was saying how if he got traded to any team but the Heat, he was going to request a trade right off the bat. And I think there's the story that came out from Chris Haynes, I believe, where they were talking about how Dame really did want to go to the Heat. And then when he kind of found out the Heat weren't really an option anymore, he just said he was going to report to camp. And they're like, nah. They're like, we're getting rid of you. And he's like, all right, fine. Send me wherever. He's like, if you don't want me, I don't want to be here. So I think I'm glad that it worked out the way so that Dame didn't, like, I don't know, hate that he was in a different situation than being in Miami, and that we can just kind of move on and not have to have more drama, because let's be real, the Dame drama all summer was so exhausting.
Yeah, it was really fun when the trade did happen, but like, why couldn't this have happened forever ago?
The buildup, though, was just so monotonous.
It was constantly like, oh, the Heat don't want to improve their offer. The Blazers don't want to talk to the Heat. Dame only wants to play for the Heat. It was just this circle of stuff. And if you like, this is maybe the best possible situation for Dame to end up in. Like, this is... because the Bucks didn't have to give up too much. They gave up Jrue, who we immediately
they didn't have to gut the roster. You know, it's not like it's Giannis and Dame. Because, you know, in a world like, if you're acquiring a second superstar to pair with another one, I feel like typically you would have to gut the roster to do so. It's kind of like what the Suns had to do when they teamed up Beal, Durant, and Booker. You know, other than Ayton, then it was just they had to sign like 8 free agents this offseason because they had nobody else on the roster. The Bucks are really going in with a core that they've had for a while, plus, you know, adding Beasley with Dame. So I don't know, man. I think we're going to switch to Portland here in a second, but I do think that the Bucks deal and then what they were able to flip for Holiday blows the Heat out of the water. And I commend the Blazers for being patient and going for the best deal.
I agree. I didn't like the discourse that was surrounding the deal when it first happened, because everybody's going, why are they going for a 30-some-year-old Jrue Holiday? They're just spiting the Heat, when really the Bucks trade package, especially when we're going to talk about the Jrue Holiday trade here in a minute, was probably better. Like, they get some really, really good pieces. First, let's go ahead and talk about the Suns. I think we should talk about them next, and then we could talk about Portland and therefore talk about Jrue Holiday. Again, I'll switch back here to this layout to switch. I wish it would just let me switch right away, but apparently that is not an option. So, of course, this was a 3-team deal with Damian Lillard. Of course, the Blazers and Bucks are involved. But we also have the Phoenix Suns, who end up getting involved in this. There were rumors leading up to the trade that we could maybe see Yusuf Nurkic and DeAndre Ayton be involved in this thing. That's exactly what happens. The Suns end up landing Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nas Little, and Keon Johnson, who they ended up cutting. So just Yusuf Nurkic.
They cut Keon?
Yeah, they didn't have enough roster space.
Did they keep Nasir, though?
Yeah, they
I
still have
figured.
Nas.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Nas Little, Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic coming as depth pieces. They had to give up Ayton and Tumuni Kamara. So now I probably should have just done this in the first place as opposed to switching back over to this one. So now we have the Suns depth chart. I can go ahead and pull up here, which is we have Devin Booker, we have Eric Gordon, which they have him at backup point guard. I don't know if that's the role he's going to play there.
I mean, someone's got to do it.
I guess so. But Beal's supposed to play point guard, so this is a little bit off. But these are the players on the roster now. Devin Booker, Eric Gordon, Jordan Goodwin, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen. We got Josh Okogie, Nas Little, Damian Lee, who I think got injured today. I saw some report. Kevin Durant, Keita Bates-Diop, Yuta Watanabe, Yusuf Nurkic, Jrue Eubanks. So this is the new look Suns that it looks like we're going to have going into this upcoming season. How do you feel about the Ayton swap?
Well, first of all, on the surface, this roster is nasty. And I don't mean the good kind of nasty. Like, yeah, like you see the Booker, Beal, and Durant, and you just see the rest of the roster, like, oh man. But if you really think about it, it's really not that bad. But yeah, before we get into the roster, like from the Suns' perspective, they really did need depth. Like they signed a bunch of, like I was saying, they had to gut the roster to get their big three, and they really did need to fill in the holes because, as we saw with like the Nets big three and some other teams that have tried to make super teams, if you don't have a good supporting cast that kind of fits and works, then it's not going to work out no matter how good your top guys are. So I do. And there's somewhere on one of our podcasts, it might've been like when we were proposing trades and stuff, but I swear I talked about a Nurkic for Ayton swap in one of our past episodes. So if anybody that listens remembers me talking about that, cause I almost positive I did. So if anyone remembers that, please bring it up so I don't look like a psycho. But
you're like LeBron lying about things, saying that you said that.
Nah, I'm going to go find it now.
Okay.
But, I mean, Nurkic is clearly a downgrade at center. Like they were talking about a defensive-minded center. He's definitely not that. But I do think with how good the rest of the roster is, you can take a slight downgrade at center in order to get Little, who's supposed to be a good, 3-and-D wing in theory. We haven't seen, his best work yet, but, we've seen flashes for him being
he's young. He's plenty young. And I think
he'll
at the very least, he's been a good defender. I think he'll be good in this role for this team. I like him a lot as a wing.
Grayson Allen provides some much-needed shooting that you lost, with all the players you traded to the Nets. I feel like the Suns were missing a lot of shooting after that. And, you got Watanabe, who put up pretty good shooting splits last year. Damian Lee is a former third Splash brother. And, and Eric Gordon can sometimes, stroke that thing. But I do feel like they needed someone that was like a pretty reliable shooter. I think Grayson Allen at worst is definitely that. So I think that was a really good pickup for them as well. And then Ayton as solid of a player as he could be and being a former number 1 overall pick, it was just clear that the match wasn't there. Like we were all kind of shook when he signed the extension with them because it was pretty obvious it was either going to be a sign and trade or just, cut ties altogether. So when they matched the offer sheet last year, we were all like, "Oh, really? They did?" So I think that kind of helps too. Get the locker room all good. And Nurkic is a winning dude, and he hasn't really been the same since his really bad leg injury. But who knows? Maybe a new team, new situation, we'll see some good play. Like he's not completely washed by any means, but I definitely don't think he's like a top 10 center like he was a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean they're not going to have to rely on him too much. I'm also thinking the Ayton situation was probably. With this deal, to me, I'm guessing the Ayton situation with the Suns was probably irreparable. Like we've heard rumors over the past 2 off seasons that Ayton was probably gone, that he wasn't happy with his role. They got rid of Monty Williams, so we were like, oh, maybe that fixed things. But I don't know. When I see this trade happen and it pops up, to me, I feel like Ayton probably didn't want to be there anymore. He seemed really happy in the video that Portland posted of him like touring their new facility and stuff, which good. I mean, I'm happy for Ayton. I like that he's in a new situation. I think he could be a lot better there. Really, the Suns, I think, just needed to wash their hands of the whole situation. They get a center Nurkic who isn't going to have to do too much. And like Ayton, Ayton was demanding all these shots. He wanted to play a bigger role. Nurkic should not be demanding anything. No, Nurkic is not going to be doing any of that. He's just going to be there to set big body screens. He can knock down a 3 here and there. He can play, hopefully, some solid defense. That's certainly the area of concern for this team at this point. They do have a defensive head coach in Frank Vogel, so maybe he can figure that out. But yeah, I think this team looks good. I've been impressed with how they filled out their depth. We'll have to see again how the defense works. But overall, I like this trade from them. Like you said, Nurkic downgraded from Ayton in both of our opinions. But to take that downgrade and get some really solid depth pieces who are two of your better depth pieces on the roster now in Grayson Allen and Nas Little, I think that's really big for this team. I could see either one of them starting at some point throughout the season. It gives them some more versatility too, like, because you're taking some shots on some of these guys. You're hoping that they work out. Some of the guys that you signed with this new team, if one or two of them doesn't work out, now you have a couple more guys. They just solidified themselves a little bit. It still felt like they were a bit too top heavy. I think this evens them out. And the Suns look really good. I think this was a win of a trade for them to get involved in this when they didn't have to be involved. Is a success from the Suns. And yeah, I think this roster looks good. They're probably second, third best team in the Western Conference right now, in my opinion, right up there with if you ask me, I think like the Suns and the Lakers are probably like my 2 and 3 right now in the West behind the Denver Nuggets. This pushes them further up into that conversation. We're going to have to see how it looks on the court because there are a lot of moving pieces here.
Oh, yeah.
But at least on paper, I think this was a good trade for them. I think they're also winners of this trade.
And Eubanks is a pretty solid backup too. So even if Nurkic does come out and he just kind of stinks, I mean, Eubanks is like, you don't want Eubanks to be your starting center, but he played pretty good for Portland last year. So
yeah, Eubanks has his moments. Like you could maybe look for a better backup big at some point. And this is also a team that will probably attract some buyout guys if someone's looking to come somewhere. They could maybe make a deal with one of these guys at some point throughout the season. They don't have much capital at all, but if they could find use a second round pick, I forget what they have at this point. There is still room for them to upgrade if there's a cheap
didn't they acquire a couple second round picks back? Like after they made all they traded a couple.
I think they did something. I can't remember exactly.
I remember they did something to retool a couple seconds. I don't remember what they did, but
I think they might have gotten some seconds when they sent Cameron Payne as part of like the salary.
No, I think that
over to the Spurs. I think they got something out of that. So they have some type of assets, I believe, even though it's not really anything special. There are some assets for them to put things together if they have to make another move. So yeah, Bucks, in my opinion, the big winner of this deal. I think the Suns also did pretty well. But I guess we can move on to the Blazers now, who did another trade today that we'll go ahead and talk about.
This might be a hot take real quick, but I don't think there were any losers in any of these trades.
I don't think so either. I think every team got out really
at least
well
on the surface.
Exactly. Like, yeah. Maybe later on we'll see that something ends up not being what we were expecting, but at least for right now.
I feel like when you have all these multi-team trades, you're always like, this one team didn't really move the needle, or you're like, okay, whatever. But I feel like at this trade, every team, I'm like, okay, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, typically I feel like when we have these big trades, initially everyone's like, oh, this team won, this team lost. It doesn't feel like one of those situations,
especially
which
now,
I feel like is rare for like a superstar trade.
Well, because I think people were kind of shafting on the Blazers a bit when it originally came out. But now after we talk about this, I think the Blazers discourse has very much changed.
Yeah, because like we talked about at the beginning of the pod, today as we're recording this, the Celtics went out there and traded for Jrue Holiday. We knew he wasn't going to be there long. The rumor was that they wanted to deal him before training camp or leading up. Shout out to Jrue. Didn't lose a single. I saw a really long, 200-character post about Jrue Holiday thanking him for his career in Portland, which I always love. Never lost a game there. Blazer legend is sent over to Boston. They trade him before training camp even starts, before media day, to the Boston Celtics, who were rumored to be really interested, but it felt like there was no way to make the money work because, at least I thought, there's no way they trade Robert Williams. That's what my opinion was. I was like, it would have to be Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, and then maybe like a Peyton Pritchard. Like, it would be weird to make the money work because they're obviously not going to include Robert Williams. They do that. They include Robert Williams. It's him. It's Brogdon. It's a 2024 Golden State Warrior first-round pick and a 2029 unprotected pick of their own to Portland to get Jrue Holiday in Boston. I feel like first we can talk about Portland here because we've alluded to them a little bit with the previous deal. We can now go over the full trade package that they got back for Dame, Nurkic, and Nas Little, as well as Keon Johnson involved in that deal too. So I've got a tweet real quick I can go ahead and pull up as well. Shout out to Underdog NBA for having all of these tweets ready for me to pull up. But this is the full return for Damian Lillard, Yusuf Nurkic, Nas Little, and Keon Johnson. All in all, they get DeAndre and Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Tamuni Kamara, a 2024 Warriors first-round pick, a 2029 Bucks and Boston pick, which 2029 is 6 years away. And with the way the league changes, those could be valuable picks, plus a pick swap in 2028 and 2030. Like, this is a great haul for Dame, if you ask me.
Man.
This is a lot. Like, DeAndre, we talked about him, former first overall pick, hasn't lived up to some of the hype that he had coming into the NBA, but I still think he's shown a lot of potential. And now where he's in a new place where he can kind of just have that expanded role that he wants. He can explore his game. He's still playing with a great young guard in Scoot. He's got Simons. Like, honestly, when I think about it, this Blazers team isn't going to be that bad. I don't even think this upcoming year.
They're not going to be good, but they're not going to win. Like, they're not going to be like 15 games bad. Like,
yeah, they'll be competitive, which I think every team in the West is going to be somewhat competitive this season. But they get Ayton, who I think could be really good there in a new environment. Just give him a new chance to get out of that sun shadow where it felt like things were going wrong. Robert Williams probably would have won DPOY a couple years ago over Marcus Smart if he didn't get hurt to end the year. He's been a consistent defensive force when he's healthy. Brogdon, they can still flip. They got another piece that they can then again flip. I'm sure the Clippers are going to be interested. They were interested in him from the Celtics before that whole trade fell through because they didn't have time to do the physical. So if they have time now, I could see him landing there or a number of other places. Kamara was just a second-round pick, plus 3 first-round picks, 2 pick swaps. Like, this is a haul for Dame, and it's why people needed to be patient. And again, this isn't even all because Malcolm Brogdon is still going to get flipped too.
And I don't think Rob Williams is even a guarantee to stay on the roster because just, he's a starting caliber center for a lot of teams. I know there's probably a lot of teams reaching out to Portland right now.
They said they're planning on keeping him. I could see a world where maybe throughout the season, apparently they might try a double big thing with Rob and DeAndre Ayton on the court at the same time, apparently.
And what, Grant's the 3?
Yeah. So it'd be Scoot, Simons, Grant, Rob, and Ayton.
Nah, they're going to start shading. There's no way.
We'll see. I mean, that's according to reports, they could potentially try that. And they do want to keep Rob, but I could see a world where the 2 big thing isn't working out and they do trade him down the line. But at the very least, like, you give yourself another really fun young big in Robert Williams as well as Ayton, where if one of them doesn't work out, you still got the other guy to, continue to flip for more assets if that doesn't work.
If I'm the Dallas Mavericks, man, I am selling the house for Rob Williams, man.
If one of these guys becomes available, I think like Dallas is an option that Charlotte. Dallas is a team that should take a look. Charlotte could potentially take a look. They do have Mark Williams, who's really good, but yeah, there's a number of teams that I think could continue to get involved with Brogdon or with one of those other guys, but it's a haul, man. Like, you got to give credit to the Blazers front office after all of this stuff where he only wanted to go to Miami. He said he's going to Miami, which you think would take all the leverage out of the situation for them. They find a way to get Ayton, get Rob Williams, Brogdon, Kamara, all these draft capital. And the craziest part about this whole thing is not only did they refuse to trade with Miami and they didn't trade him there, they dealt with Miami's 2 biggest rivals at this point in the Eastern Conference in the Bucks and the Celtics.
So you're telling me
both of them better.
You're telling me now they need to throw Brogdon to the Sixers, right? So they can just put the final nail in the coffin?
I guess so. If they've got to make something happen. Like, they made probably the 2 best teams on paper in the Eastern Conference even better with these trades. Like, if Joe Cronin was trying to screw over the Heat, he did a phenomenal job. And I don't want the Heat to be screwed over. I like the Heat. I like this Heat team.
Heat hater right here, man.
Shout out to our guy, Matt, big Heat fan. It's been a rough weekend for him, but yeah,
and his Colts lost.
And they got so close. Hey, they look good. Anthony Richardson looked great. But yeah, man, like, it's a haul, and they didn't have to give in to the demands like they didn't want to. Again, you can decide for yourself if they should have traded Dame where he wanted to go or not. But in terms of what they got, what they were looking for, I think this is a phenomenal job from their front office.
Yeah, and I think this might be kind of silly, but I like to look at trades in terms of first-round picks. So, like, think about like when Jrue Holiday got sent over to the Bucks in the first place. Was it 4 first-round picks?
I want to say I think it was 3 and then 2 swaps or something like that.
And then like Rudy was what, 5 first?
Rudy was an insane haul. Rudy
so
was,
I like to think of these trades as first. So you get 3 firsts and 2 swaps. You get Ayton, who could probably get you a first or 2 if you traded him. You get Rob, who would probably net you a late first from somebody. If a team was really desperate, I think Brogdon could get a highly protected first from like a playoff team.
I think he can get a first. I think there's a team like if the Clippers are desperate for guard play, they've been looking for one continuously. I think you could get a first from the Clippers.
So if you translate this trade package into first round picks, you got essentially 7 first round picks from this. Based on that that equation, I just kind of sent it.
Yeah, if you want to put it together like that, yeah. And I mean, again, we could see pieces get flipped, and this is only the beginning for a young Portland team that's still trying to figure out their identity. But they've put Scoot, who I think I've said before, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but definitely on YouTube. Like, to me, Scoot is an incredible prospect. I think he's going to be one of the best guards in the league someday, and they've already given him a bunch of talent to work with. Like, it's not like he's starting with this awful team where he has no
It's not
help
like he's
around
getting the
him.
Jalen Green treatment where his second best player is Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah, like he's from the day one, he has talented players around him, which I think is cool. It's cool that he's going to have that chance.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of not a direct similar situation because he wasn't a rookie, but when we traded for Shea, immediately he had Chris Paul next to him, he had Adams, he had Gallinari, like Schroeder. We had a good team surrounding Shea, and I think that was helpful for his development to have that good team, or at least have some players that could contribute alongside him. And now you see where Shea is at this point. I don't know if Scoot's going to become like a 30-point per game scorer or anything, but I do think it's helpful for his development to at least have some solid pieces. Maybe I saw one person joke that the Blazers already managed to build a better team around Scoot than they ever had around Damian Lillard, which is, I don't know if that's true, but it's funny that people are even being able to have that conversation.
It's funny though, because if you think about it, if they were to use their assets to get him like a co-star, like a really, really good co-star, I mean, I'd argue it is probably just as good, if not better roster than Dame ever had.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Obviously, they had to trade Dame to make it happen.
I was thinking of what you're saying about young point guards, development stuff, but all I could think about is Killian Hayes and like Frank Ntilikina and how they were both on like garbage teams.
I love that those are the first young point guards that come to your mind.
Notice they're both French, but don't draft the French point guards, my dudes.
Don't put these French point guards into bad situations.
Now, French bigs and wings, you know, they kind of rock. They can kind of hoop. They're guards though.
Shout out Ryan's favorite player, Rudy Gobert.
My absolute favorite. Mm-hmm. Walker Kessler clears, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, man, this is, I mean, again, like we said, I don't think there's any immediate losers from this whole saga with these three teams.
If we're doing grades, I think everyone so far has gotten at least an A.
Yeah, I give the Bucks probably like an A+. The Suns probably like a B+, I think. And then the Blazers, including the Jrue Holiday stuff, I think it's like an A or something like that. Like that's probably what I'd go with just off the top of my head, just because the Suns thing I think is a little bit more.
If only they didn't give Jeremy Grant a bag, man, and they could have like got him off the roster and got either more assets or like, you know, just broke up the money elsewhere. It would have been kind of
they
nice.
still can, like,
I don't know what team, unless they're taking on some horrible contracts. I don't know what team wants to pay him that money, but
I think someone will get desperate. I don't know if they're gonna be able to trade him this year, but I could see in like, you know, next offseason or in a couple or maybe next year's deadline or something. I think Jeremy Grant.
They're going to have to take on some baggage though, man.
Yeah, they are. I mean, well, the thing is, like, say if a star becomes available in a few years and Scoot's leveling up and they're looking good, like Jeremy Grant does give them a contract to throw out their first star player if they're looking for something like that. So
just so I can throw it out there, so when it happens, I can look like a genius and someone can clip this. But I think some way, somehow, Harden's going to end up a Clipper and Brogdon's going to be a Sixer. And it's going to be a 3-team trade between these three teams. So I'm just throwing it out there. And I think somehow...
I pray for you that's not the Harden replacement.
What?
I pray for you that's not the Harden replacement.
I mean, I could just see like... Because now the Blazers have all these assets. And I could see them wanting to get like maybe like a Terrence Mann, get like a young wing, like, you know what I'm saying? Like somehow get some more young players in the mix here and give up one of these assets to kind of sweeten the pot for the Sixers to give Harden away. So I don't know.
I can see it. I still feel like the Harden.
I don't want it to happen, and it's gonna be very depressing. But I'm just throwing it out there, just so when it happens, you can say I talked about it.
Okay. Yeah, it's. The Harden domino is the last thing to fall. He's almost assuredly not going to be at media day tomorrow, right? They're like, there's no way.
If it's funny because I work all day tomorrow, man. Do you know what time media day like takes place?
Let me check. I'll see what time the Thunder do theirs.
Because I already know, man. I'm gonna be working with. I work in physical therapy. I'm gonna be working with a patient tomorrow, and I'm gonna be getting spammed. Like Harden went to media day and is just bashing Morey, and Embiid's talking about how like a lot of people probably saw the tweet where Embiid said this offseason was hilarious. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
so I think there's going to be some all-time Sixers quotes tomorrow. Tyrese Maxey's going to be all happy. I think Pat Bev will throw something out there that's crazy, but
you know, Pat Bev is good for a quarter too.
Kelly Oubre will get some simps. It's going to be a good Sixers media day.
The Thunder are doing theirs. I tried to find the Sixers time. I couldn't find it. Thunder are doing theirs at 11 a.m. Central, so that's noon here. I'm guessing most teams will probably start around like noonish.
All right, good. I get my lunch break at noon, so I will be ready to just. I'm about to sit in my car, heat up my lunch, and just watch depression unfold.
There you go. We'll keep you all posted on Ryan's Sixers-based depression, which is seasonal, and the season is the NBA season.
I might have mentioned this on last week's episode, but I still have all my Harden shirts in my my bin under my bed, and they'll eventually come out if he commits to this team.
Yeah, you got to replace those with Brogdon shirts coming up here shortly.
Yeah, Brogdon and Tumani Kamara shirts. It's gonna be crazy.
But yeah, that's everything with the Dame trade, as well as the beginning of the Jrue Holiday trade. And now we got to talk Boston. Where is this tweet that
hurts my soul, man, because this team is so damn good.
The Boston team is really good. Okay,
my agenda this season is just going to be that Tatum is a fraud if he can't win with this roster, because that is really the only negative agenda I can kind of even spin with the Celtics roster, because this roster is good. It's so good.
It is good. So this is what the Celtics look like now after all the deals. Starting lineup is here. They have Horford and Porzingis starting. I don't know if they're going to have Derek White starting or come off the bench. I think their closing lineup will be Jrue Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis, those five.
Maybe Horford if they need more defense. But yeah, it's gonna be some combination of that.
They've got options. I think it'll be matchup dependent too. Like if they're playing the Bucks with Giannis, they might put Horford and Porzingis out there to give them some more size. If they're playing a team with a great guard, like say you're playing the Knicks, like Jalen Brunson's torching you, you put Derek White out there. But the Celtics add two all-star caliber players in the same offseason in Jrue and Porzingis. You've got Jrue Holiday, Peyton Pritchard as your backup one at the moment, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jordan Walsh, Sam Hauser, Shout Thunder legend, Svi Mykhailiuk as well, Al Horford, O'Shea Brissett, Kristaps Porzingis, and Luke Kornet. The depth is rough. I mean, you can see the first couple comments after this tweet, talking about the depth.
They did sign Wenyen Gabriel.
They did sign Wenyen Gabriel, who I like as a backup big. I think that's an immediate improvement over Luke Kornet. I like him as a big. Not the big. I think he's like 6'9", 6'10", so he's not like a 7-footer or anything.
He's like a small ball 5 or more. So.
Yeah, but I think he gives you some more size, which you desperately needed. I've seen a lot of people saying that this trade makes them worse. I could not disagree more. I think this is huge for them. You add Jrue Holiday here. Like, giving up Robert Williams sucks. Like, he was here for a while. He was a great defender here, and your front court is thin now. I'm worried about Kristaps Porzingis' injury issues, especially if they have him play the starting five for a majority of the season. I don't know how that's going to work. But if this team stays healthy, this team is ridiculous. I mean, your biggest rival on paper, because all summer I'd been saying that the Celtics were my favorite in the East. I love the Porzingis trade for them. I thought it made them way better. Giving up Marcus Smart hurt. But now you replace Marcus Smart with Jrue Holiday, a great defensive guy who is literally the answer to your, again, biggest rival in the Bucks, adding Damian Lillard. Like, if there's anybody to stop Dame,
not to mention Drew's the one to do everything to destroy the Bucks.
Exactly. And you add a motivated Jrue Holiday, who the Bucks traded away, and then immediately he's rerouted back to their rival in the Eastern Conference in the Celtics. Like, you can't make a better narrative than this for a potential playoff series. Like, Jrue going up against his former team, him and Dame battling, they gave me up for Dame. Like, I want to show them. You've got Jason Tatum.
Jrue Holiday's gonna hit one of these.
Jrue Holiday clamps up Dame, like steals the ball away from him to close the game, and he hits the watch celebration. Would be an incredible moment. Like, all the narratives are there. These, in my opinion, are by far the best two teams in the East at the moment. Barring any other trades out there. Like, there are still some other good squads. I tweeted out that the Celtics and Bucks are the best two teams, and there were a few Heat fans who were like, oh, wait till you see us again. I'm sorry. I would be legitimately maybe more stunned than I've ever been if the Heat beat one of these teams as currently constructed, fully healthy in a playoff series. I just don't see it. The Celtics team has incredible, like, Derek White and Jrue Holiday is the best defensive backcourt in the league. Not even close. I can't think of anyone. Like, Derek White's an all-defensive guy. Jrue Holiday is one of the best guard defenders we've seen in quite some time. They're clamping up all over there. Jason Tatum is a good defender too, a 30-point-per-game scorer. Porzingis just had maybe the best season of his career. Like, this team is really good in terms of high-end talent. They definitely need to fill out this roster a bit more, but this is a team that also didn't have to give up much in this deal. Like, they still have first-round picks they can trade. They've got second-round picks. Brad Stevens has been continuously aggressive. Derek White was a trade deadline acquisition that's worked out beautifully for them. Like, they can still make moves.
The Derek White trade, man.
Ryan deserves credit for that.
There's a tweet. I have a tweet, which I don't know if you can find it off screen real quick.
I can try.
Yeah, just type my ad and type Derek White or type White. I tweet out that Derek White was the best trade deadline trade. I tweet that out at some point.
Let's see if I can.
And that was before he started going nuclear.
Yeah.
I had some kind of tweet that
Derek White was one of the most underrated pickups of the NBA trade deadline.
What was the date?
May 27th, 2022. So you did say that during the playoffs.
I said
but that was also before he was that was before he was doing what he did this past season. So I'll give you that, because this past season he turned into an all defensive guy.
Wait, that was 2022?
Yeah, that wasn't this year. That was 2022.
Oh yeah, so I was spitting, man.
So you deserve credit for that. But like I don't think people realize how good Derek White is. He's really, really good. The backcourt defense is impeccable. If there's any backcourt that's going to be able to stop Dame, it's this one. I don't know, man. I think this is a really good team. The concern is the front court depth and overall depth. Like, you go up against Giannis, are you going to be able to slow him down with
front court defense? Is interesting too. Like Embiid, like I know Horford's had some luck against Embiid, but just like if you're facing Embiid, or if you end up facing Jokic in the finals, or if, like you said, facing Giannis.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like with the Bucks, it's the guard defense. With this team, it's the front court defense. Like, how does that work out for you? Like, what's the trade-off there? But yeah, these two teams feel like they're bound for the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, they're the best two teams in the East. Again, I'm going to give this trade another like A plus. Like, to me, this is a home run. Like, all you had to give up was losing Robert Williams does really hurt. That he is a piece that is really good for you, but he has become injury prone, and he's always been injury prone. But that you have to match the Bucks somehow. After they make an acquisition like Dame, you've got to do something. You can't just stand there. They did exactly that. They grabbed Jrue Holiday, prevent him from going to one of these other teams that they could be trying to compete with, like maybe the Sixers, like maybe the Miami Heat. They went out, snagged him, and they didn't have to give up a crazy amount to get him. To me, this is a great grade of a trade. Again, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Again, like we talked about, every one of these teams that's made a trade so far, it feels like they won in some way.
You should have heard the F-bomb that I dropped when I got the notification. I was texting my friend Nick. That's also a friend of Connor's. We were just texting about, like, he was like, oh yeah, I wonder if we would have to include Horford if we did some kind of trade with the Blazers. And I kid you not, 5 minutes later, the Woj bomb came out. It was so funny. We were dying laughing when we were texting each other. But yeah, man, as a Sixers fan, this hurts. This hurts because I think if we did like a tier list of Eastern Conference teams, I think before these two trades, I think Sixers, Celtics, Heat, and Boston were all in like the same tier. And now I really think that the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks are on like their own tier. And then like Sixers, Cavs, Heat, Knicks, like those teams are probably the next tier down.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's depressing. And it's tough too, because I don't know what we're going to do. We still have Harden on the roster and he doesn't want to be there. So it's kind of hard to compare them, but I really think like if it's not a Celtics Bucks Eastern Conference Finals, then something really effed up happened.
Yeah,
like
someone got hurt, or I mean, maybe like one of these teams deals with
someone
injuries in the regular season, and the seeding just works out, so they play in the second round or something. But these are the two best teams in the East.
Yep.
You know, the Heat, it would be cool to see them make another Cinderella run. I don't see any way the Heat recover from this to beat one of these two teams. Like, they got, in my opinion, the Heat stayed the same, or probably even got worse, if you ask me. These two teams leveled up in a big way. Like, the Celtics added 2 All-Stars. The Bucks added a top 10 player in Damian Lillard. Like, the rest of the Eastern Conference are the big losers of this offseason. Anybody that's trying to compete right now, these teams are just better. So, yeah. I do want to ask you, we're going to wrap up the pod here in a moment because we talked a lot about these deals. Right now, if we did, I'll just go ahead and make us the two faces thing again. Right now, like on paper, if you had to pick one of these two teams to win in a series, a 7-game series, Celtics, Bucks, who would you take? Right here. This may change before the season. We're going to do like a full season predictions pod before the year begins. But right now in this moment, who would you take to win in a series?
I'm taking Boston simply because I think they have Jrue, and I think he'll not lock up Dame, but keep him at least at bay.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like, it's just funny because I'm like, they're going to torch the Bucks offensively, but then who the heck's going to stop Giannis and even Brook Lopez? Like, they don't match up well for each other. You know what I mean? It's not like,
yeah, it's weird. They like kind of miss each other a little bit.
Yeah. But I think I'm taking Boston simply because I think the impact of Jrue would have defensively, and that you still have Tatum. And I don't think the Bucks really have a good matchup for Tatum. Even Giannis would have to guard Tatum, but then, I mean, you still got Jaylen Brown, you still have Derek White, you still have, a lot of other offensive options there. Kristaps, like, because that's the thing, you can only put like Brook and Giannis on so many guys because like someone's got to go Kristaps, someone's got to get Jaylen Brown, someone's got to get Tatum. So I just think they have a lot of mouths to feed, which could be a good or a bad thing. Because all I can think about is the Celtics team where they had Kyrie, Rozier, Tatum, Brown, Hayward, like Horford. That was a really solid team, like kind of like this one, very similar team to this one in a way. Whereas you had like a lot of really good options, but they just had too many mouths to feed. So I'll be curious to see if we see that problem again. Because I do feel like it'll be interesting because you have Brown, Tatum, KP, and Jrue, who were all probably 20-point per game scorers last year.
Jrue, I think, put up like 7. I think it was like 17 and a half, 18. So he's right around that range. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, wait. He was 19.3. He was higher last season.
So pretty close. But then like Tatum and Brown were like 25. I think KP was in the closer to mid 20s maybe.
Tatum was 31.
Really that high? Oh man.
I think it was 30.6, something like that. Jaylen Brown was 27 almost. Like they were really scoring. So they're gonna have to figure out.
We'll see how that goes because the Jays have always been the shot takers ever since Kyrie left that team.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to help them a lot because, you've seen it a lot of times watching the Celtics.
Their shot selection is very, very, very interesting.
They have those moments where their offense just completely devolves in the playoffs and it falls apart. And it's just isolation, chucking up shots. Jrue Holiday is the best playmaker these two stars and Tatum and Brown have had in quite some time.
Yep.
So you add him. Porzingis also can operate out of the high post. They can run some actions with him there, some dribble handoffs and stuff. Plus, he gives them a shooting threat.
I've seen how many times Protractor up in the corner. Now it's going to be KP.
Yeah, so you have a lot more options. I think it's a lot more versatile now for the Celtics, which is why I like them so much when they added Porzingis. Jrue Holiday now adds that playmaking, that gritty defensive guy that they lost with Marcus Smart that so many people were concerned about. So that's why I really like the Celtics team. But then I think about the Bucks, and I think they are deeper than the Celtics at this point. Plus, you have the higher guys in terms of rankings with Giannis being better than Tatum. Like Giannis, in my opinion, is the second best player in the world behind Jokic. Jason Tatum, I think, is firmly top 10. Probably put him at like 7, 8 or something like that. I don't know. I'm not doing a player ranking right now. He's firmly up there in that conversation with like the top guys. But Dame, I think, is firmly top 10. Jaylen Brown is probably more like top 15, top 20-ish. I think
that's the thing, though. Jaylen Brown and KP, I think, in my opinion, absolutely clear they're third and fourth best guys.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, yeah, so you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown is like the top 2. I think Giannis and Dame are better top 2.
Oh, yeah,
but yeah, Porzingis is like better than Middleton, I would say, at this point.
Depending on I'd put Holiday. I'd put Holiday. That's what I meant. I'd put Holiday and
Porzingis over Chris and Brook.
Over Middleton and Brook.
Yeah, it's going to depend on. I think Middleton's going to be huge because he's coming off injury. To me, this could be a massive season for him because defenses are going to be so keyed in on trying to stop Dame and Giannis that Chris might just feed on like wide open looks. But yeah, like I think I might lead the Bucks at the moment. But the problem is, like, I was picking the Celtics this whole summer, and then they add, the Bucks add Dame. I'm like, oh, I don't know. But then the Celtics add Jrue, who like directly counters that. I don't know. I'm going to have to wait until the season starts. For right now, I'm like 50-50. I think this would be a amazing 7-game series that comes all the way down to the wire.
See, one thing that'll be interesting, I think the Celtics are going to mesh a lot faster. I think the Bucks might have some growing pains just because it's completely different. New coach, new system, completely different player than you've ever had. Not saying Jrue is like Smart, but Jrue is really just a better Marcus Smart.
Yeah, he gives them a lot of that,
and probably just a little bit better defensively, I would say.
Yeah, we'll have to see how Drew's offense holds up in the playoffs because he's prone to those stinkers like 3 for 13
he's
games.
prime poor date in the playoffs.
But that's also like they're not going to rely on him much offensively in the playoffs because like we talked about, Tatum put up 30 this past year. Jaylen Brown put up almost 27.
They kind of had to have Jrue Chuck in the playoffs just because Giannis was hurting a little bit, and then Chris Middleton was coming off the injury.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, Drew's always been like their third option. Now he's the fourth option over there in the Celtics.
Could be the fifth of Derek White if the thumb man is heating up.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's everything. I know you picked the Celtics. I guess I'll go with the Bucks to make it interesting at this moment. Again, these are not our official takes. We're going to go into
comment below though who you guys would pick in a series.
Yeah, let us know who you would win. Yeah, how many games? Who would win? Do you think these are the best 2 teams in the East? Can anybody compete with them? What do you grade each team in these deals? Leave a like and subscribe to. Helps the channel out a ton. We'll be dropping a pod sometime midweek, hopefully, talking about Media Day, which is exciting that that's here. And preseason games start pretty soon. I think preseason basketball starts in 8 days, if I remember correctly. Like, we're right here at the beginning of the season. Super exciting stuff. When the season comes around, these pods will become extremely regular, once, twice a week. So definitely make sure to subscribe. Check it out on Spotify. Still having problems getting up on Apple. They're really weird about podcasts. So still trying to get that up. But yeah, we appreciate you all as always. Comment down below if you made it to this point in the video. Trying to remember a meme or something we alluded to throughout this video. I can't remember. Nothing is coming to mind. I'm going to go ahead and look around me. Also nothing.
Comment Enjoy. I'm repping. Enjoy Basketball. Connor does some work with them.
Yeah.
And Kenny's a friend of ours. So let's comment Enjoy
there you go.
If you got this far.
Yeah. Comment enjoyed this podcast.
Yes.
We'll go ahead and put that
enjoyed
together.
this podcast. So that way, you're doing the meme and you're also you're helping the algorithm a bit.
We appreciate y'all as always.
Everyone's gonna look like bots in the comments.
Yeah, they're gonna get
this podcast.
Our podcast is gonna get flagged and taken down because we have a bunch of bot comments down below it. So switch it up a little bit. Throw an exclamation point out there, maybe a question mark. Who knows? But yeah, appreciate y'all as always. We'll see y'all again at some point soon. Take care. Peace.